AITA for demanding my parents pay back the money they spent for my restaurant gift card that my boyfriend gave me. He later gave me another card, which they also took. My name's Sarah, I'm 24 years old, and I live just outside of Seattle. I work full-time at a non-profit, trying to squirrel away enough money to start grad school next year. Because Seattle rent prices are, well, ridiculous, I've been living at home with my parents to save up. It is not glamorous, but it's been manageable, until this situation happened and kind of cracked open a lot of things I didn't want to look too closely at before. I've been with my boyfriend Jake for a little over a year now. He's 26, works in marketing, and he's probably the most thoughtful person I've ever dated. He's the kind of guy who listens to throwaway comments and then surprises you with something meaningful 2 weeks later. For my birthday last month, he gave me a $250 gift card to this upscale restaurant in downtown Seattle that I have loved since college. I don't go often because it's expensive, but their tasting menu is incredible, and he knew that. It was such a sweet gesture. He gave it to me in a little card with a handwritten note that said, "You work so hard. You deserve a night that's just about you." I was genuinely touched. I hadn't had a fancy dinner out in ages, and it felt like this beautiful moment of someone seeing how much I've been trying to hold everything together, work, money, family, and saying, "Hey, go have something for yourself." Except, I never got the chance to use it. About a week after my birthday, I came home from work and my mom was in a weirdly chatty mood. She mentioned that she and my dad had gone out for dinner the night before, which is not unusual. But when I asked where, she said the name of the exact restaurant Jake got me the card for. At first, I just blinked, trying to connect the dots. Then she smiled, this smug little smile, and said, "We used that card your boyfriend gave you." It was delicious. I thought she was joking. I literally laughed. But then she walked away like it was no big deal, and I just stood there, stunned. I followed her into the living room and asked her if she was serious. She looked at me like I had grown another head and said, "Of course. Sweetheart, we're a family. What's yours is ours. You'll go again another time." That phrase, "what's yours is ours," echoed in my head for hours after that. I don't even know how to describe the feeling. I just remember sitting on my bed that night, staring at the empty envelope where the card had been, and wondering when the last time was that someone had given me something that I was allowed to just keep. I told Jake about it the next day. He looked shocked, like he couldn't even believe someone would do that. But he didn't get mad. Instead, he told me not to worry about it and said he'd just get me another one. I told him he didn't have to, but a week later, I found another card, same amount, same restaurant, tucked into an envelope on my nightstand. Inside, the note said, "You deserve your own night out. No one else's." I almost cried when I read it. It wasn't even about the restaurant anymore. It was about being seen. So, fast forward 2 days. I come home, go to my room, and notice the envelope is gone. I don't even have to ask. I go into the kitchen and there it is, sitting wide open on the counter, empty. Like a joke. Like some kind of weird message. I checked the balance online just to be sure, and yeah. It had been completely used up. Again. My hands were shaking when I asked them. I didn't yell, I didn't scream. I just asked. My dad looked up from his tablet and said something like, "Jake clearly likes to treat the family," and that he assumed the second card was also, for everyone. My mom actually laughed and said I was being dramatic. She told me to stop acting like a spoiled brat, that I had a roof over my head and shouldn't be throwing tantrums over a dinner. That if Jake cared about me, he wouldn't mind treating the people who raised me. I told them it wasn't about the food. It was about the fact that they took something that wasn't theirs. Twice. Without asking. And didn't even seem sorry about it. They brushed me off. My mom made a sarcastic comment about how I should be grateful someone wants to give me nice things, and that I shouldn't act like a martyr just because someone else finally stepped in where they hadn't. I told them they needed to pay me back. They refused. They said I was out of line. That I was living under their roof, eating their food, using their water and electricity, and that I didn't have the right to demand repayment for something so petty. Jake was livid when I told him. He offered to call them, but I said no. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about me drawing a line, even if I didn't know where that line should go yet. Since then, things have been tense. My parents have been cold, almost passive-aggressive. They still think I was out of line, and any time I bring up the idea of boundaries, they roll their eyes. My dad made a comment the other day about how some people forget who paid for their dance classes and braces, which felt like such a low blow I didn't even know how to respond. The truth is, I have been trying to be a good daughter. I work full-time, I contribute when I can, I keep to myself, and I never expected anything extravagant. But this crossed a line. Twice. Am I the asshole for demanding that my parents pay me back for the gift cards they used without asking? For expecting that a gift given to me, for my birthday, should actually be mine? Because if I am, then maybe I've been living in a completely different reality than the one they expect me to accept. Update 1. Hi again, Reddit. I didn't think I'd be back with an update this soon, but a lot has happened. And I honestly need to write this out just to keep myself from screaming into the void. Or sobbing. Or both. After my last post, I sat with the whole thing for a few days. The stolen gift cards, the gaslighting, the way my parents dismissed my feelings like I was being some spoiled brat for wanting to keep a birthday gift to myself. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about dinner anymore. It was about control. It was about how, somewhere along the line, I became less of a daughter and more of a resource. So I made a decision. I told them, calmly, clearly, and without giving them the satisfaction of seeing me upset, that they had one last chance to fix this. I said I wanted the full amount of the gift cards reimbursed. All $500. I didn't care if it came in cash, check, or smoke signals. If they couldn't respect me enough to make this right, then I'd be drawing a very firm line, no more access to anything of mine. No more borrowing things from my room. No more using my accounts, my subscriptions, my Amazon Prime, my Costco card, or anything else I had ever stupidly let them use under the excuse of family shares everything. That would be over. And I meant it. They didn't budge. Not even an inch. My mom said she was done talking about this ridiculous topic, and my dad just kept flipping through his tablet like I was background noise. It was like talking to a wall made of smug indifference and entitlement. I could practically hear their thoughts, something along the lines of, she'll get over it. She always does. Then, 2 nights later, Jake sent me a screenshot that made my stomach drop. It was a message. From my mom. On Facebook. She had messaged him. Not me. Not to apologize. Not to make things right. But to ask him for another gift card. The message read, "Hey Jake. If you ever feel like treating us again, that was an amazing meal. We'd love another gift card when you have the time, smiley face." Complete with a smiley face emoji like she was texting an old friend about brunch plans. I stared at the screen for a good minute, blinking. Thinking it had to be fake. Or a joke. Or something. But no, he showed me the actual message on his phone, timestamped, coming from her account. They're not even friends on Facebook. She had gone out of her way to find him and message him directly just to ask for more. I felt like the world tilted under me. I think I actually whispered, "What the hell," to myself as I sat on my bed in total disbelief. My face was hot, my hands were shaking, and my heart was pounding, not out of fear, but out of sheer rage and humiliation. Who does that? What kind of parent sees their child's relationship and thinks, "Oh good, new perks for me"? Jake didn't respond. He just texted me and asked if this was normal for my family. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say this was some weird one-off, that my mom had lost her mind for a second, that this wasn't who she was. But I realized I couldn't say that. Because this wasn't a one-off. This was a pattern. And it went so much deeper than just 2 stolen gift cards. It was the way my parents always made me feel guilty for spending money on myself. The way they expected me to share everything, even when I had nothing left. The way they would joke about how nice it must be to have a boyfriend who actually tries, while hinting that I should remind him how much your family loves seafood. The way they had, over time, trained me to feel like the only way to keep the peace was to hand over whatever small joy I had the moment they wanted it. I felt sick. Not just angry, sick. Because I finally understood something I hadn't wanted to admit, they didn't see Jake as someone who loved me. They saw him as an asset. A walking credit card. A ticket to finer things they felt they were owed because they happened to raise me. That night, I confronted my mom. I told her I had seen the message. I told her it was wildly inappropriate, invasive, and manipulative. She didn't apologize. She just rolled her eyes and said something along the lines of, "If he's serious about you, he should care about your family." Like that was supposed to make it okay. Like the fact that he loves me means she gets to use him like some kind of upgraded benefits package. I felt something snap inside me in that moment. Something I don't think is going to snap back. She didn't understand what she had done wrong. Not truly. And I realized then that she probably never would. Because in her mind, this wasn't theft, or entitlement, or boundary stomping. It was just business as usual. The way it has always been. The way she expects it to continue. But I can't unsee it now. I can't go back to pretending this dynamic is normal. Because it's not. I went back to my room that night, turned off the light, and just lay there in the dark for hours. Not crying, not texting, not even thinking clearly. Just existing in that heavy, gross realization that the people who were supposed to protect me had started treating me like a bridge to better dinners, fancier perks, and easy benefits. And that they had no shame about it whatsoever. I'm still figuring out what to do next. But I do know one thing. I've never felt so used. Update 2. After conversations with Jake, I made a decision. I asked him if he'd be willing to come with me for a sit-down talk with my parents. I didn't want to ambush them, and I wasn't trying to create some dramatic intervention. But I thought, if they could actually see how much damage they'd done, how deeply inappropriate and violating it all was, they might finally understand. Or at least hear me. Jake agreed without hesitation. We picked Saturday evening because my parents wouldn't be distracted by work or errands, and I knew they'd be home. I spent the whole day feeling like I was preparing for a courtroom trial rather than a family conversation. Jake and I ran through what we wanted to say, calm, clear, honest. I didn't want it to become a shouting match or a guilt spiral. I just wanted to explain how this behavior had crossed a line I couldn't ignore anymore. When the time came, we sat in the living room. Me and Jake on the couch, my parents across from us in their armchairs. I could tell from the moment we started that they were already defensive, arms crossed, faces unreadable, like they were bracing for something ridiculous. I laid it all out. Slowly, carefully, without anger. I explained that the gift card was a personal gift for me, not a family free-for-all. That it was meant to make me feel special and appreciated, and instead it turned into this bizarre, invasive situation where they helped themselves, twice, and then went so far as to message my boyfriend behind my back asking for more. I told them that it didn't feel like a harmless misunderstanding. It felt violating. It felt like they had no respect for boundaries, no understanding of what a healthy relationship looks like, and no concern for how that might affect not just me, but us, me and Jake. I told them it wasn't just about the money, though $500 is not exactly pocket change. It was about the principle. The way they treated generosity as something they were entitled to rather than something to appreciate. The way they acted like Jake's kindness was a faucet they could turn on whenever they wanted a nice meal or a handout. My dad's response? He laughed. Laughed. Not a nervous chuckle, not a surprised exhale, a full laugh, like the idea that we were hurt by their actions was absurd. He said Jake should be flattered that they liked him enough to want more. That it meant he was being welcomed into the family. As if raiding someone's gifts and demanding more was the love language of our household. My mom took a different route, emotional manipulation. She started listing all the things they had done for me growing up. The sacrifices. The food. The clothes. The education. She said, "We raised you. We fed you. And now you have someone who's finally helping out, we thought it was a shared blessing." As if my boyfriend giving me a birthday present was suddenly part of some communal repayment plan for the job of raising a child. Jake was quiet up until then. But when my mom said that, he sat up and said something that stopped everyone cold. He said, "I love your daughter. I gave her something personal. I didn't expect it to be stolen," then demanded again. "That's not love, that's exploitation." His voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. And it was the first time I'd seen my dad actually go still. He didn't have a snappy comeback for that. He just went quiet, staring at Jake like he didn't know what to do with a man who didn't immediately fold to his logic. My mom, predictably, teared up. Said we were being cruel. Said we were turning our backs on family. Said she didn't know when I became so cold. I told her this wasn't about turning my back. This was about drawing a line. About saying, you don't get to treat people like this and pretend it's love. I told her I wasn't cutting them off, but I was done pretending that every violation of trust was just how families are. I said I loved them, but I also loved myself, and Jake, and I wasn't going to sacrifice our relationship to appease their entitlement. They didn't apologize. Not that night, anyway. They didn't even acknowledge how out of bounds they'd been. The conversation ended with a weird, heavy silence, and we left shortly after. I felt exhausted. Drained. Like I had emotionally sprinted a marathon and all I had left was a numb ache and a pile of unspoken hurt. Jake held my hand in the car the whole way back, and I didn't say much. There was nothing left to say. Then, the next morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone. A Venmo transfer from my mom, $500, no message, no note, no apology. Just a clean number. Quiet acknowledgement. A financial bandage on a still bleeding wound. But they did Venmo me $500 the next morning. Update 3. It's been 2 weeks since the sit-down conversation with my parents, the one where I thought everything might just fall apart for good. And while I'd love to tell you that things immediately improved, that everyone apologized in a grand sweeping moment and we all hugged and cried and moved on, that's not what happened. Not exactly. But something did happen. And it was something I didn't expect. Right after the talk, the house felt like a cold front had moved in. Not outright hostility, but something quieter. Muted. My parents didn't say much beyond the basics. No snide remarks, no lectures, but also no warmth. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was strategic. Like they didn't know how to act around me anymore, and rather than risk doing something wrong, they just retreated into this uncomfortable politeness. They didn't apologize, not verbally. But after sending the $500 through Venmo, they stopped making comments like, family shares everything, or, you'll understand when you have kids. And for a while, I honestly believed that was just going to be the new normal. Frosty distance, polite detachment, and a quiet understanding that boundaries now existed whether they liked them or not. I didn't push it. I still kept to myself. Jake and I kept doing our own thing. He was supportive but cautious, not wanting to reignite anything. We still talked about the whole ordeal, but less and less. It was clear that, for the sake of our sanity, we both needed to focus on what we had together, not what my family had taken or failed to give. Then something unexpected happened. Last weekend, out of nowhere, my mom suggested Jake come over for dinner. Her idea. She didn't say it with attitude. She didn't phrase it like a test. Just asked, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I was skeptical, of course, but also curious. I told Jake, and he was just as surprised, but said he was open to it. He's always been more patient than I am. We went over on Saturday evening. I didn't know what I expected, something awkward, probably, but when we walked in, the smell hit me first. My mom had cooked. Not just spaghetti or a salad or something simple. An entire meal. Roasted chicken, potatoes, green beans, freshly baked rolls, actual effort. She had even set the dining room table, which she normally only did for holidays. There were candles lit. Cloth napkins. It was intentional. That's the best word I can use. Intentional in a way I hadn't seen from her in a long time. Then she did something that I don't think I'll forget for a long time. She hugged Jake. Not a pat on the shoulder. Not a forced gesture. A real, proper hug. And she said, I want to do this properly. Welcome. I think both Jake and I stood there blinking for a full 3 seconds, because neither of us saw that coming. Dinner was, shockingly, nice. Not performatively nice. Not tight-lipped, walk on eggshells nice. Just, normal. My dad, who had previously laughed in Jake's face, asked him about his work, and they ended up having a 20-minute conversation about financial planning and real estate investing. There were no backhanded compliments, no awkward questions, no entitlement. It was the first time since everything blew up that I saw my parents actually engage with Jake as a person, not as a resource. After Jake left that night, my mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. It wasn't a speech. She didn't get dramatic. She just said she realized they crossed a line. That she didn't want to be the reason my relationship suffered. That she hoped we could do better from now on. She didn't say the word sorry, but I didn't need her to. Not this time. Because it felt real. Not performative. Not manipulative. Just honest. And in the days that followed, something subtle but significant started to shift. The little jabs and comments that used to pepper every conversation, those were gone. The sense of entitlement, the idea that I owed them access to everything in my life just because they were my parents, that faded. My mom even asked me before borrowing my hair straightener last week. I know that sounds small, but if you've been raised in a household where boundaries didn't exist, you know how big that really is. Jake has come over a couple more times since that dinner. Each time, it's felt better. Lighter. Like we're not just navigating a minefield anymore. He and my dad have even started talking sports, and my mom sent me a recipe the other day, saying she wanted to try it the next time we all ate together. There's been no mention of gifts. No comments about money. No under-the-surface resentment. In fact, next weekend, we're all going out for brunch. Together. And this part blew me away, they insisted on paying. My dad actually said, "We owe you one." It's not perfect. I don't think it ever will be. There's still a lot of history, a lot of habits that need unlearning. I'm still watchful. Still waiting to see if this new version of them sticks. But for the first time in a long while, I'm hopeful. Not naive, just open to the possibility that people can grow if they want to. That the people who raised you can sometimes relearn how to treat you when you finally stand up and draw a line. And for now, that's enough.